During August, I've managed to find, like the 1st of July or something. During August, I've managed to work.
Picture this, a candlelit studio in West London. Ancient amps hum with low vibrations. Jimmy Page, rock's elusive alchemist, leans back in a worn velvet chair, flipping through vinyl sleeves. But these aren't Zeppelin reissues. These are records from women. Women whose voices didn't just sing, they cast spells. Page has spent a lifetime chasing the mystical, the melancholic, the electric, and in that search there were 5 women who left a permanent mark on his imagination, not just for their talent, but for the way their energy seemed to match, even challenge, his own. First, there was the primal scream of poetry and pain, Janis Joplin. The first time Page heard Janis, it was like being struck by lightning through a radio. She didn't sing, she erupted. Her voice was jagged emotion, her phrasing untamed. It wasn't showbiz, it was survival. They met briefly in San Francisco in '68. Just a handshake and a few shared words, but it was enough. Page later said he had never met anyone who felt every note the way she did, like each lyric was carved from her lungs. To Page, Janis was rock stripped bare. No pretense, no polish. Just fire. Her energy was chaotic, raw, and devastating. She didn't ask the audience to feel something, she dared them not to. What moved him most was the vulnerability wrapped in power, the way she could scream like a storm and then pull back into a whisper that cracked like broken glass. She gave everything and asked for nothing. It reminded him of what music was supposed to do. Make you uncomfortable, make you feel, make you believe. Next came elegance with steel beneath it, Stevie Nicks. Where Janis screamed, Stevie whispered, and yet she was no less powerful. Page was enchanted by her voice the moment he heard Rhiannon. It wasn't just the melody, it was the atmosphere she conjured, her mysticism, her phrasing, her strange spellbound delivery. It all felt like a mirror to his own obsession with the arcane, the unseen, the unspoken. They met at a party in the Hollywood Hills in the late 70s. No cameras, no headlines. Just 2 icons drifting in and out of candlelight, exchanging stories about tarot cards and sound frequencies. Plitela, she spoke like a poet decoding dreams. He listened like a disciple, absorbing every cadence. For a moment, it felt like they were the only ones in the room, maybe even in the world. She moved with the quiet intensity of a storm you didn't know was coming until it was already overhead. There was no flirtation, only recognition. 2 artists, steeped in myth, speaking the same musical language.
I would be working at home on the guitar, and I'd be working on pieces of music that I would think and direct towards the next album.
Page once admitted to a friend that her voice haunts rooms long after she's left them, and to him, that was the highest kind of magic. Then came a voice that tore through silence like thunder. Graced Slick. Fronting Jefferson Airplane, Grace didn't just sing, she declared. Page admired her because she was fearless. In a world of preening frontmen, she stood her ground and roared louder. Her power wasn't just vocal, it was political, personal, and profoundly raw. There was something hypnotic about the way she moved on stage, controlled yet chaotic, defiant but not desperate. Page often said she could silence a crowd with a glance and incinerate one with a verse. She didn't sing for approval. She sang because silence wasn't an option. They shared a festival bill in '69. While Zeppelin brought the storm, Grace brought the revolution. He watched from the wings, mesmerized not just by her performance, but by the way the crowd changed when she sang. She commanded, they obeyed. No theatrics, just fire. Later, he called her performance the sound of a collapsing empire. It was the highest compliment he could offer, because in Grace, he saw what he respected most. Someone who didn't just ride the current of the times, but redirected it. And that, to him, was power. Next came precision, elegance, and bluesy defiance. Bonnie Raitt. Page, a student of American blues, had nothing but awe for Bonnie's slide guitar playing. When he heard Love Me Like a Man, he stopped what he was doing. It wasn't just the playing, it was the control, the silence between the notes. She didn't attack the instrument. She spoke through it, with patience and purpose, like someone unafraid of the truth her fingers might find. What amazed him most was her ability to balance technique and tenderness. Every note felt earned, never showy. Quiet storm to the stage, one that didn't need lightning to strike. It simply arrived, heavy with soul. Her phrasing reminded Page of the Delta bluesman he idolized, but it came with something more. The perspective of a woman who had seen the world, been broken by it, and refused to be defined by it. Her tone carried heartbreak without collapsing into it. She could tell a story with one bend of a string. She played like someone who had walked through fire and didn't need to scream about it. There was grace in her grit and restraint in her rage. It was bold without being loud, intimate without being soft. They never played together, but Page kept tabs on her career. He collected her records not as a fan, but as a fellow traveler, someone who recognized in her sound a kind of holy economy, no wasted notes, no empty flourishes. At a backstage event in New York, he introduced himself, paused for a second as if weighing his words, then simply called her the best hands in the business, and walked away. That was his way, quiet reverence wrapped in understatement. Privately, he often referred to her as the heartbeat of modern blues, not because she reinvented the genre, but because she anchored it. She held it steady while others tried to repackage it, because in a world where flash often drowned out feeling, Bonnie made every note matter. And for Page, that was everything. She wasn't trying to be seen, she was trying to be heard. And she was, fiercely, eternally, without ever needing to raise her voice. And finally, the modern flame in the lineage of rebellion, P.J. Harvey. Page didn't fade with age. He evolved, and in P.J. Harvey he saw a spark of the same musical danger that once defined his youth. Her voice was angular, emotional, and unflinching. Her guitar playing was unapologetic, sharp as broken glass, yet precise ritual. There was nothing ornamental in her style. It was all edge and blood, honesty with no apology. He saw her perform in London in the late 19s. No flash, no filters, just music and menace. She didn't smile. She didn't pose. She carved through the silence like it owed her something. It rattled him, in the best way. He reminded him of the first time he watched Page and Plant take a stage without knowing what might happen. The same energy, the same risk. What struck Page most was how she controlled the chaos. It wasn't about volume or glamour. It was about truth. Every note from PJ felt like it came from a wound she wasn't trying to hide. There was defiance in her stillness and rage in her restraint. And that kind of vulnerability, that fearless confrontation, reminded him of the rawness he once chased in Zeppelin's early days. She felt ancient and modern at once, like a blues singer trapped in a post-punk body, telling ghost stories with a broken guitar. Page never spoke about her publicly, but those close to him say her records lived in his collection like talismans, unlabeled, but always near. He didn't need to name her out loud. Her music already echoed through the darker corners of his legacy. She wasn't just a reminder of where rock came from, she was proof of where it still had the courage to go. Jimmy Page built an empire on riffs, mystique, and fire. But even kings of chaos have muses, and for Page, they weren't gentle echoes in the background. They were thunder in their own right. These women weren't backup singers to anyone's legend. They were legends in their own right. They carried truth in their tone, defiance in their delivery, and magic in every movement. Each of them mirrored something different inside Page. Janis's wildfire, Stevie's smoke and shadow, Grace's revolution, Bonnie's resilience, PJ's raw edge. He saw in them not competition but confirmation. That the deepest truths in rock weren't tied to volume, bravado, or gender. They were born from guts and soul. And while others saw showmanship, Page saw sorcery. He never tried to shape them. He simply stood in awe, quietly absorbing what they gave. Their music didn't just inspire him. It warned him, comforted him, challenged him. Their voices weren't guests in his world. They were lighthouses in it. And Page, the eternal seeker, never forgot the way their voices lit the path, even when the room was dark, even when the crowd had gone, even when the silence pressed in. Because for him, real music wasn't gendered, it wasn't even human. It was enchanted.